Hey, and welcome to the One Mission, One Movement podcast, where we believe that God has one mission on his mind to reach the lost and one movement on this planet, the Church of Jesus Christ. In episode 3, we are challenged to contend for mission or share our faith. It sometimes can be a daunting and scary task, but today, Wayman and Steve are going to offer some practical advice. Are you ready? Let's get started.
I'm Wayman Ming.
I'm Steve Throckmorton. Today we're continuing, Wayman, our adventure, this grand adventure that we've launched on the 1M podcast.
Yeah, it's awesome. And we thank you for joining us. Really, One Mission, One Movement is about the idea that God has one mission on his mind to win the lost, right, and one movement on this planet, the Church of the Living God.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. And so as we've been going through the podcast, we've just kind of been framing it with the acronym PCG, and we've been talking about pursuing God's presence. We're going to start talking today about contending for the mission, and then we're going to talk about how growing the church. And so that's kind of the way we've been focusing, and it's exciting. Amen. We feel like it's going to be very helpful.
We're excited about it. And Steve, as you know, One Mission, One Movement is about the notion that God has one mission on his mind, which is winning the lost, and we are one movement on this planet, the Church of the Living God.
Yes.
And so we're hoping to inspire a missional movement of people that will really move the mission of Christ forward by the power of the Spirit.
Right. Yes. And so we're going to talk about contending for the mission. Start talking about that, and today talking about sharing our faith.
That's right. And today's really exciting in that for One Mission, One Movement, that middle part of PCG, pursuing his presence, P, contending for mission, C, and growing the church, G, really the contending for mission portion is that portion that really should catalyze our personal faith and our willingness to share our personal faith. So today's episode is about sharing your faith and some of the basics in that. Right. I want to give you a quick statistic and have you respond to it.
Okay.
I just returned from the Pentecostal Churches, Charismatic Churches of North America meeting, PCCNA, and one of the statistics that was shared by Global Outreach is the statistic that 85% of all Christians never share their faith, which means that 85% of Christians graduate to heaven and they never take anyone with them.
Right,
or 85% of Christians, for some reason, this may be bold, they sit on their blessed assurance, right, and they don't depopulate hell.
Right.
So why do you think that's the case?
Well, I know I'll be a little bit more bold and say that, we've gotten comfortable sitting on our assets, And but beyond that, and I was thinking about this the other day, and we're not able to let go of our liabilities. I was thinking about this the other day.
Wow!
And so the assets God's given us a lot of assets in the kingdom. I think about that parable about the talents. That a certain amount's given to one, a certain amount given to the other, and that how two of them go out and invest and allow that to grow. And I think a lot of Christians, they bury that, they bury that talent, they bury that. And I think a lot of this is probably the most challenging thing, I think, for Christians is learning to share their faith. But, I got to thinking about it. So, don't sit on those assets. Don't bury them. Understand that God has gifted you and that you're capable. But liability, this came to me the other day, is liability. It's like, what do you mean you're liability? Well, I mean, it's that lie we tell ourselves that we're not able to do it.
Wow.
And we've got to quit. We've got to let that go, because that's just the enemy. And anything that's going to be effective, God's going to do it through us. And so I tell people, give up your liabilities for your tryability.
Wow.
Try
that's
it.
Good.
Just try. And let the Holy Spirit lead you in that. The more you try, it's like anything. The more you try, the better you're going to get at it, and the more rewarding you're going to find it. Yeah.
Well, I mentioned that PCCNA meeting this year, but last year I attended as well. And one of the great joys in attending that is the larger Pentecostal charismatic
That
denominations
was exciting.
decided to choose a representative, a millennial under 30, to bring them in and talk about some of these ideas. And so last year, we had 20 different representatives. We had one representative from the Pentecostal Church of God, Fiona Parker.
Wow.
And so in the discussion with those 20 leaders from different denominations, they brought up something really interesting. The question was asked, what is frustrating you the most about the church or about leadership? Here's their response: that our spiritual leaders are not practicing what they preach.
Wow.
That's what they said.
Whew.
They said one of the greatest frustrations for them was hearing their spiritual leaders talk about winning people to Christ, but not seeing it. Talk about inviting people to come to church, but not seeing it. Talking about walking in spiritual signs and wonders, the supernatural, but not seeing it. And I came home last year around this time, and it took me 2 weeks to process through that because of this idea of the 85%, not just being Christ followers, but even spiritual leaders in the church that aren't sharing their faith.
No, that's true. And I think, and that's it's so important. What people are looking for is authenticity. That's what they want. And it's not what you say; it's how you live that out. And I think the church has really struggled in that area. And I think it's one of the things that we see in our culture and the directions of our culture. We point at directions that we think are our area. That the culture's going down the wrong path. But, I think it's because the leaders in the church have not been blazing the kind of trail that needed to lead people to Christ. And part of that is the authenticity of their faith. But it's hard to share a faith that you don't have. And I think for many years, this was one of the things that I struggled with. And we talked about that a little bit before in Pursuing His Presence. And it really ties into that, is that, if you have a genuine relationship with God and you have genuine faith in the Lord, that's exciting. I mean, that's life-changing. And then you're going to share that. You're going to share it even when you don't know you're sharing it, because it's affecting the way you live, the decisions that you make, the things that you say. And then if you can add into that this intentional attitude, and that's what I want you to really talk about today too, because this was one of the big transformations in your life.
Yeah, that's right.
Was to do that. So I think that would be helpful to people. They're going to ask the question, well, how do I do that? And I think your personal experience and insight in that could really help.
Yeah, and my personal story is one that was transformational for me, because I found myself in that place that I was talking about. I was part of the 85%, that was missing in action. I was a spiritual leader serving in denominational leadership, and I had lost my passion and commitment to share my faith. I would preach messages at the church house and give altar calls, but I wasn't sharing my faith outside the four walls of the church on a consistent basis. And so, about a decade ago, the Lord showed up in my life and spoke 10 words to me that transformed my life. And they were the words, "Follow me, and I will make you fishers of men." In the Greek, "Doute episo mu kai poenso hamasaleus anthropon," which really revolutionized my faith, because basically the Lord showed up and said, it's time you learn how to fish again.
Right.
And so I resigned my position in denominational leadership, and I went to the front lines, and I started sharing my faith with as many people as I could, walking the streets of my neighborhood, talking to my neighbors. I had the wonderful privilege of leading my next door neighbor to the Lord.
Great story.
And we might share that at some point in the future. But basically, God broke my heart. He did heart surgery on me that made it uncomfortable for me not to share the goodness of God in my life.
That's right. We receive that gift, and then, but the transformation that God has brought into our lives, it's intended then for that not only to be for us, but to transform us into someone through whom that He can speak into other people's lives. And I think, the church, this is the big challenge that we're stepping up to now, is to realize that. And when we were growing up, I mean, I remember evangelism was, it was you had to have the right technique, or you had to have the right method, and so you would go and you would share something, and it was just you did these
evangelism explosion or whatever program at the time.
They were effective to a certain extent,
sure,
but it really worked for people, for people that could kind of get into that and enjoyed that, and I always felt like I was the odd man out. I would try, but it just didn't fit. I always felt like I was a square peg trying to fit into a round hole, and I came to the conclusion, I must not know how to do this. I want so badly to be part of this, and so but when I really came back to the Lord after many years and just really had a relationship with the Lord, the liberating thing was God was like, listen, I created you. So there's no technique. I don't want you to be someone else. I don't want you to follow someone else's. Just be yourself.
Yeah.
And so I realized that I had a relation. That's what I was saying earlier, sharing the faith. I had a faith to share. I had a story to share.
Yes.
A story of how God had transformed my life, how he'd come into my life, and how that now I lived in his presence every day, and the things that God had done for me. And then living by faith, the exciting things that would happen by just living by faith and trusting God. And I had a story, and I found myself sharing the story. I didn't think about, I got to share the story. I just found myself at any conversation naturally saying, in every conversation, there's a moment in which you can share yours, you can talk about what's important to you, you can share in that, and always connect with this other person. And you just start talking about God, his goodness, and what he's done. And people,
that's right.
People, they love to listen to that. Yeah.
Well, and a great example of that for me just recently was someone who was an Uber driver, and I love taking Ubers, so that's a great time for me to share my faith.
Captive audience for sure.
Lots of Uber drivers have heard me talk about the Lord, but just a couple of weeks ago, I was going to the airport early in the morning, and so this Uber driver, Clint, was taking me, and so I love it because at some point in a conversation it turns to, and what is it that you do?
Right.
And for me, that's like the huge open door, because now I get to talk about how I'm a pastor and how I get to care for people's souls and those types of things. And so, but this Uber driver, Clint, I talked to him about his faith, and he basically said at a young age, his parents divorced. He wasn't interested in God, wasn't interested in church. Mm-hmm. And that he really hadn't developed any kind of relationship with God. But he did say this, which was very important, but I believe in God.
Right, yeah.
And so that opened up the door for me to say, you know what, Clint, you believe in God, and here's the thing, God believes in you.
Man, that's good, good.
And that was the open door to really talk to him. And eventually, of course, he shared, wow, this is like the third time in the last few weeks that somebody's talked to me about God, about Jesus. And when I got out of the car and walked around to get my suitcase, I grabbed his hand, like this. Yeah. And he was going to pull away. But I just held on to his hand, and I just said, God, right now I pray that you will inspire Clint to know you, and that his heart will be turned toward you, and that he will seek after you. And I mean, I just took the moment to pray over him, and when I released his hand, it was this deer in the headlights look on his face, but it was a divine moment where he felt the presence of God.
No, it's absolutely true. And what you said was so good, because within that span of time, you were the third person that had talked to him. And that's what I tell people. It says, you have to understand, you're part of a bigger story here. God's been speaking to these people. So if he impresses you, if you have an opportunity, or you feel this impression to share with someone, understand that the Holy Spirit is already working in that person's life.
That's right.
And so you never know. And so then you have the opportunity, where the other two may have not had, to pray into his life, to take that ball and run a little bit further down the road with that.
Yes.
And obviously God's leading him
yes.
Into the kingdom. And so and then those moments are priceless. They're so exciting.
Well, let's take a quick moment and just give 3 practical steps for our audience watching or listening today to help them in sharing their faith. I think there are some practical things that will help them. First of all, I would say sharing your faith begins with interceding for pre-Christians.
Right.
And I like the term pre-Christians because, God's not willing that any should perish,
That's right.
but that all should come to repentance. So I think God wants to win every person. Every person is a pre-Christian in God's eyes.
Yes.
But it's difficult to share your faith with someone when you haven't been praying for someone.
That's right.
And so if you're praying for the lost, if you're interceding for the lost, then you're much more sensitive, I think, to share your faith with the lost.
I think prayer does a couple of things. One, prayer brings you closer to the heart of God. And then that, because God's compassion for these people, for everyone, for all of us, that compassion becomes infectious to you. And then in that prayer, then you get what we used to call a burden. You begin to feel something beyond just a responsibility, but you begin to feel that need and that urgency then to reach out to them because it's in the heart of God.
Right.
Yeah.
So I would say, first intercede for pre-Christians, and then second, invest in pre-Christians.
Right. And I talked about that, I think, a little bit when we were talking about investment before. That's when I said, don't sit on your assets. It's like, understand, man, God has gifted all of us, and He orchestrates the time. So invest into other people. And by investing in them, is you care about them. This is not about winning them over to a cause. It's not about, trying to garner their vote. It's not about that. You invest in them by caring for them. And it's very important. I know a lot of the points you've made about it in your experience has been very helpful to me too. It's just building relationships with people.
Yeah, and it can be very simple. I'll give a simple example. Last year, around this time, I went into the AT&T store and met a wonderful guy by the name of Lee. And so for a couple of days, because we were buying phones for the family, I got to talk with him, and he wasn't attending church. His family wasn't attending church. Again, he believed in God, but it wasn't something that was important to him. So I invited him to church. And 2 Sundays in a row, 2 weekends in a row, he said, I'll come. But on Saturday night, he texted me and said, I'm not coming.
Right.
Something's come up. I'm not going to be coming. So I decided the next weekend, it was the 3rd weekend in a row, that I would go buy him a gift card from the favorite restaurant that he wanted to go to that he had mentioned to me. So on Saturday, went and bought him this gift card, took it in, gave it to him, didn't mention anything about church. I just said, hey, Lee, I know you wanted to go to this restaurant. I was thinking about you.
Right.
Hey, enjoy this restaurant. And then I walked out. Well, guess what happened? Saturday night, he texts me. And he says, hey, Wayman, my family and I want to come to church on Sunday.
Yes. Fantastic.
And they came.
Right.
And now they've been attending church for a solid year. Right. God's doing incredible things in their lives, just simply because it wasn't just about talking, but it was about investing in some way. In this case, just a gift card from a restaurant.
And it makes sense because you were paying attention to him. And so you knew, hey, he wanted to try this out. So that conversation led to that moment where, hey, as a friend, listen, here's this. And that's how simple it can be, to develop that relationship and then allow the Holy Spirit to invest himself into the relationship. And then great things are going to come out of it. It's good.
So we have first, interceding for pre-Christians, second, investing in pre-Christians, third, very simple, invite pre-Christians.
And by that point, it's simple. By that part, your heart's been moved in prayer. You've been praying for them, and then you're getting to know them. Then the invite follows. I think a lot of people kind of turn it around. They kind of start with that invite with no relationship, no investment, with no prayer. And that's why a lot of people get frustrated in it. So I like this. Pray for them. Pray for them. Invest into them. And then you're going to have an opportunity to invite them. And that invitation is going to be well received, I think. Yeah.
So good.
Yeah.
Well, we're so glad you have been joining us for our episode on sharing your faith, the One Mission, One Movement podcast. Steve, we always want to finish every podcast with the idea that when your mission is clear,
Yes.
your decisions are simple.
Yes.
So give us one quick decision that we can make, that we can implement, that will help us to be more effective in sharing our faith.
Yeah, I think today the best thing to do is just start where what we talked about. Just start praying for and interceding for someone in your life or 2 or 3 people in your life. Just start today by praying. And then God will put people on your heart if you don't know, whatever, but start with prayer. Start with intercession.
That's great.
Just start the ball rolling with that, and then you'll move into the investment, and then when the time's right, you'll be able to invite them not only to church, but you can introduce them to the Lord, yourself, and it'll change your life.
It'll be incredible.
It'll be incredible.
So everyone, thank you for joining our One Mission, One Movement podcast, where we are pursuing His presence, contending for mission, and growing the church.
Yes, and we'll be doing this bi-monthly, and so if you want to listen regularly, then like it, share it, and hit that subscribe button on that. Our next episode's coming up in a couple weeks.
It's going to be great.
It's going to be great.
Ready to close it out?
Ready to close it out.
One mission,
one movement, all to Him.
Thank you for listening to the One Mission, One Movement podcast. This podcast is sponsored by the Pentecostal Church of God, which is a body of believers in nearly 70 nations around the world. So we certainly invite you to join the movement by visiting our website at pcg.org. But more importantly, we want to inspire you to pursue God's presence, contend for mission, and grow the church. So if you liked today's episode and you're excited about more to come, we'll be dropping new episodes bi-monthly. So be sure to like, share, and click the subscribe button for more updates. Thanks for joining us today, and we'll see you next time.